He says that the afters argue that maybe having davening only on Shabbos and Yom Tov would create a sense of awe for people. On the other hand, he says it's true that the rabbis fixed the Amidah twice a day in order to parallel the Tamid, the everyday offering. And he says in order to remember it, every city has 120 men, that there should be 10 batlanim, should be 10 that are just there to make a minyan and study day and night. That's interesting, by the way, right? I don't know where the 120 part comes from. He must be quoting a Gemara. That's interesting. That's basically 9% about, right? I don't know if you could say here that he's expecting, or that there's an expectation part of Chazal that 8 or 9% of your congregation will come to everyday davening. That's interesting. That's about what it is. And Rabbi Yochanan said that whenever God comes to the shul, and not just us, many shul, and God becomes angry if there isn't prayer. He says it's become the opposite. He says people are coming to davening, but there's pasuk also that says, who asked this from you? He says you have another problem. He says people are coming to davening. Let's say maybe the majority in the Orthodox community at this time are coming to davening every day, but he says they've lost the sense of awe because of that. You who have merited to pray with awe and with beauty, it's good that you're singing it and that it's with the right with beauty. So why are you also causing? I think he's saying to the Reform, you've solved the problem of the balagan, but you have the other problem of God comes and there's nobody there on the weekdays. So Shimoy, he says, listen to me. He says, why don't you solve both problems? Retain your general population coming on Shabbos and weekdays. Shabbos and Yom Tov, so that it won't be a balagan like the Orthodox, shtilach, whatever. But you have this other problem of God coming to your shul and not finding anybody. The Gemara thinks that's value also. So he says, appoint 10 people that'll daven every day, shachas and mincha. And it'll be a pure mincha. I don't know what he means by that. Maybe it means 10 people who will daven well on the weekdays. Rishalmi, I think it just has to do with the mincha offering. So that's how he wants to solve it. He's saying he's not without any criticism for the Reform. But that's his argument: is don't become like the Orthodox community in 1819, which everybody's davening on the weekdays. I'll just go back to it being a balagan. But the shul should not be empty. Now, this is a slightly different than the argument that Rabbi Kunitz had made, which was have davening on. That was about silent Amidah. He was okay getting rid of the silent Amidah, I think. But Rabbi Kunitz was not. Rabbi Kunitz had said, bring back silent Amidah, and lots of religions have a silent Amidah. But I think Rabbi Horn is pro getting rid of silent Amidah, but he doesn't want to get rid of weekday davening entirely. I can't remember if Rabbi Kunitz had addressed weekday davening. To look back. be strong and don't let your hands weaken. Those who love the truth will not falter. Gam sichlos uptios yamu lahakdir zohar ha'emet. You have the enlightenment to Zohar ha'emet, to have the shining truth. Yavru yamim v'deyuteim gam kinatam yisapru gam itamu. He says, if you can withstand the criticism, I think he means of the Orthodox, and their kina, their zealousy, it will go away eventually. V'hamon am b'nei Yisrael gam b'tchila memurach lev kaved lev ha'amazeli pared mehergel noshan. Does that mean the majority of the Jewish people, if at the beginning they are open to you, the heart becomes heavy because they get used to things. I'm not sure what he's saying here. If this is also a thing that you cannot fix, something that's gone bent that you cannot fix, hashmad, the light will be Shekulim Amdu al Har Sinai Barot Kolos Kol Hashem. They all stood at Mount Sinai and heard God. Shover Keshed Ramav Rishaim. Iskarvu al Makora Emet. Yachziram Lemutav. Those who come close to the source of truth, you will be able to move them back to goodness. I think what he's saying is that even if people go off the derech, you'll be able to move them back. It's a little hard to know what this last paragraph is. It's a little bit poetic. Not sure if he's trying. I have to work on this paragraph a little bit. Let's just see the next paragraph. God should give you staves for your tent. Take away any stone which is like a projectile toward you. In other words, he's saying, I think, be strong against those who criticize you. Tivlu yemechem b'seva tova, b'sheina v'ra'anana, b'shalom arein kates. You'll have peace. And then he signs his name. He says, "B'yom shenichpalbo kitov." On the day when it says kitov, which is in Bereshit on Tuesday, I think, or Monday, Tuesday, and it had 10 crowns. Tzahali, I think this is the date. Tzahali v'roni yoshevet Zion. So he's using this phrase to date the letter. V'roni yoshevet Tzahali. My prayer and my song for those who dwell in Zion. I don't know if this is a veiled criticism of the Reform for taking out references to Zion in their prayer book. I mean, why does he choose this? Right? In fact, it doesn't really work very well because he has to highlight just these letters. Vav Resh Nun Yud Yud Shin Bet. Tali V'roni Yoshevet Zion. Unless this is sometimes.
That's usually to denote the year, I think.
Right, it's the year.
The letters that are bolded.
For sure. But what I'm saying is it's very awkward. It's these 5 letters. So without the tough here. So he's picking this pasuk for a reason. I'm just trying to figure out why. Now, sometimes they'll like throw in, I wonder if there's there's sort of a hidden, if you move the letters around. Makom hamitsuyan bahalacha hazot, mashkaz chazal pasuk oiv Hashem shari Tzion. there's a place in halacha that it's good to look about this matter on the verse, "Oh, Hashem Shari Zion," God loves the gates of Zion. So I don't know what's going on here with the Zion part. In other words, he's putting in, right, and he's choosing a pasuk, Tali V'Ranu Shes Zion. Those who dwell in Zion will pray to and sing to God. I think this may be a criticism of the Reform, that they've taken out the references to Zion. Yeah, this paragraph. Let me show you some Sofer's response to this. I'll probably do this time. So it's in the book by the Hamburg Besdin. Here we go. This is that book by the Hamburg Besdin of the letters against, responding basically to this to that book, Nogat Tzedek. And we had seen some of the letters from this, like the first few letters we read. And if you remember, most of them were, the Tshuvot in Nogat Tzedek were more halachic, although Rabbi Choron's a little, I don't see it as halachic, it's more sort of practical, or sort of arguments that don't seem that halachic. But the response of Rabbi Breslau after this, and the letter of Rabbi Mercanati and others, was a little bit more halachic. And then the Hamburg Besdin's response is more public policy-ish. If you remember, sort of like, how can you make these changes? How can you do this? And so here the Chassam Sofer has a letter. It's printed in this book by the Hamburg Besdin. And it's being printed by the Hamburg Besdin, but the letter is from, it's a letter from the Chassam Sofer to the Hamburg Besdin, in which the Chassam Sofer says, I got a letter from Rabbi Choron recanting everything. You can see it from the Rabbi of Pressburg. Uvitocho, we got a third letter from Rabbi of Pressburg. Uvitocho muskar igeret tshuva. In it is a letter of tshuva from Rabbi Aaron Choron. It's the same name. Choriner. Rav Be'er, the Rabbi Be'er. Asher katav lo'odil ibnei Yisrael. He wrote to tell the Jewish people, Kira ki shogag. He realizes he made a mistake. B'chata, and he sinned. Horat var masher lokain, that he, said halachic things that are not true. Atashav mikol devarav. Now he has recanted everything. Bittul devrei tshuva. Kinata emet. And he is nullifying the tshuva that he wrote that was called Kinata Emet, which is the name of the tshuva. He names the tshuva that in the book we just read. Hanidfas b'sefer ha'avon, right? Avon means sin, but this is an acronym. Aleph Vav Nun. Nogat Tzedek. Umidoraisa b'betul ba'al masagi. And here's quote from the Gemara. And from the Torah, if you just are mevatel what you did, like with a vow or something, that's enough. And then this is the letter from the Chassam Sofer that contains the letter from. So we don't have the letter directly from Rabbi Aaron Choron. We only have it through the path of the Chassam Sofer. You will see that. The Chassam Sofer is telling the truth. That's the letter. But Rabbi Choron, in his response later in the year, in another book that he publishes, claims the Chassam Sofer only published half the letter. So we'll see. We'll look at that. And then I think we need to judge for ourselves. Who is Rabbi Choron? We don't know much about it. I'll have to see what else he wrote. Does he, is the Chassam Sofer right? Is he right? Is he a reformer? No, that's always the question: are these people, are they Orthodox people who are slightly more open-minded and want to include the reform in the community and see some value in the reform? Again, it's very early reform. Or are they reformers wearing sheep's clothing, right? And that's the question always. And there's an argument, as we saw, among modern scholars about Rabbi Kunitz, in which, some, even 50, 100 years ago had basically kind of written him out of the responsa world. On the other hand, we saw that there was an introduction to a book by Mark Shapiro in which he argues that Rabbi Kunitz was totally orthodox, and so that that it's hard in retrospect, obviously, to figure it out. Who were these people exactly? Obviously, to do a real study and take a person and look at everything they wrote. But I'll take a look around to find anything more from Rabbi Chorin that might shed a little bit of light also. Okay, have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.